Verena's I drifted in perpetual hush, a steel blossom tethered above Titan's methane clouds. Its petals were once research domes, hydroponic bays, stellar labs, now retooled into Dominion relays, comm towers, and prisoner decks. Every panel, every corridor, hummed under Dominion algorithms. The gravity stabilizers no longer served comfort, but control. Surveillance lattices replaced skylights. Voices, once bright with discovery, had withered into hushed gestures and darting eyes. The Dominion had learned quickly that fire met fire. But silence? Silence was a void they couldn't model. Life inside the eye followed Dominion doctrine, monitored movement, assigned labor, regulated speech. Each human bore a tracker like a leash at the ankle. Words above a whisper drew attention. Ideas above protocol drew consequences. Children learned early. Color within lines, speak through pictures, obey the blink of the tower lights. And the towers blinked constantly. But beneath the stillness, the humans watched. They timed. They waited. Asha Nerl moved through conduit shafts and ventilation walkways like a memory, unseen, unnoticed. She wore Dominion-issue gray like all maintenance techs, but inside her head, the system analyst never stopped calculating. Before the fall, she'd calibrated data pipelines from Mars to Europa. Now, she tightened bolts and recalibrated Dominion fiber links with the same cold precision she once used to manage quantum burst queues. Her silence was strategic. Words were weight. Even greetings bore risk. But her silence was not surrender. She counted footsteps between towers, noted which cameras flickered. She mapped air pressure changes by feel. Every variable logged in her head. Home was a reappropriated dorm in Sector 5B. Her niece, Nina, waited there, 13 years old, wordless since the invasion, but with eyes that saw too much. Asha protected her like classified code. She had lost everything, job, city, her sister during the data burn. But she kept one thing, her mind, and it remembered patterns, especially the ones that didn't belong. In a maintenance tunnel beneath Relay Spire 3, Asha crouched beside a sensor cluster. She pressed a microtool to the casing, its signal buried inside official repair codes. Above her, the Dominion Patrol walked their usual circuit. 2 figures, perfect intervals, predictable arcs. But not quite. The alignment lasers pulsed. She watched the numbers scroll, offset drift. 43 seconds. Again. It was the 3rd time she'd recorded it. Same cycle. Same blind spot. She leaned closer to a patched dome beside her leg. "Penny," she whispered. The drone, a Frankenstein's monster of salvaged surveillance gear and a courier-bot chassis, flicked its sensor once, then twice. Understood. Asha closed the casing, resealed the weld, and walked away. The corridor remained empty. No alarms. No lights. Just 43 seconds of invisible freedom. The spill stank of fermented protein and Dominion standard ethanol, but its real traffic wasn't drinks. Caleb Vu served vodka analogs to blue-armored officers with one hand, and with the other, wiped condensation trails into coded messages. He had once jammed signal traffic for the Orbital Defense Corps. Now, he jammed truth into rumor, passing data under Dominion noses. Asha came sometimes. She never spoke. She drank tea with no sugar and listened. The chatter was noise to the untrained ear, but not to her. "This quadrant's been off-timing again," a drunken guard grumbled. "Lag spikes. Maybe it's nothing." Caleb raised an eyebrow. Asha blinked. The message passed. A napkin sketch. A glance. A torn barcode. The web moved in gestures and inference. The Dominion measured resistance by heat and sound. But humans had found another way. Tactician Sermo stood in overdeck tower, staring at the flowchart bloom of life inside Verena's eye. Green lines for workers. Blue for juveniles. Red if flagged. Nothing burned red. Nothing had for cycles. "They are pacified," he said. "No comm bursts. No thermal flux. No activity above predictive thresholds." His superior nodded. Sarah Mo disliked inefficiency. He had failed to suppress Corrales, due to erratic human behavior. panics, martyrdoms, unpredictable irrationality. But on Verna's eye, silence reigned. Predictability returned. He didn't notice the 43-second delta in Patrol Group Gamma. It was within variance. Not enough for a flag. Noise. That's all humans were. Nina's fingers moved fast, sketching with a stub of graphite on scavenged parchment. Her eyes never blinked. Asha sat across from her, scanning the lines. A Dominion Corvette. Precise. Labeled with marks Nina had no way of knowing. Another sketch. Internal wiring of a command console. Asha's stomach turned cold. And then, a maintenance shaft beside a graviton dish. Slightly skewed, with a note, just a symbol, marking it out of alignment. Asha leaned closer. The angle matched the lagging patrol path. "Nina," she whispered, not expecting a reply. The girl looked up, solemn and silent. She remembered everything. The Dominion couldn't erase that. Couldn't track a thought. Couldn't erase a mind. Asha kissed her forehead gently, closed the notebook, and locked it inside the floor vent. The battle hadn't begun yet, but they were already winning. We weren't made for conquest, but we remember how to listen. Again, the drift. Asha crouched beneath a flickering status screen in Subdeck 9, pretending to recalibrate thermal flux regulators. Her fingers moved with mechanical precision, but her mind had already detached, parsing patterns, weighing intervals. 43 seconds. Every fourth patrol cycle. Exactly. She logged it. Not in the system. That would be suicide, but in the rhythm of her memory. This time, the anomaly aligned with a spike in Dominion Comnode traffic. Not random. Not drift. Overload. Predictable. Vulnerable. The node throttled traffic during overloads to prevent system collapse. It created a micro window, a silence in the noise. In that space, data could hide. Asha's pulse quickened. If it held true, it could become a channel. A breath between pulses. She blinked once. Penny, her ever-watching drone, clicked in acknowledgement. This wasn't just a glitch. It was an invitation. The bot was old, scuffed, half-functioning, and perfect. They met in the back of the spill, where Caleb brewed counterfeit drinks no one actually liked. He tilted his head toward the drone as Asha keyed in a visual pattern encoder. No text, no sound. Just timed pulses of red and blue from its maintenance light. "It's a drunk janitor on wheels," Caleb muttered, watching the bot do a lopsided loop. "Exactly," Asha said. "No one watches the janitor." She embedded the sequence into its Enava loop. 4 cycles of timed passes by the overloaded node. The light flicker would send the data visually, invisible to Dominion system logs. Penny would wait at the far end to confirm the bounce. They released it. It rolled off, humming, blinking, a dumb bot making a dumb circle. The Dominion guards didn't flinch. The cameras didn't flag. The node's traffic spike hit the burst. On the final loop, Penny lit green. The message got through. Not intercepted. Not filtered. It worked. No alarms. No alerts. They hadn't just tested data. They'd tested the enemy's assumptions. Humans couldn't resist, they believed. Especially not the civilians. Especially not with cleaning bots. But the message was clear. The silence had teeth. They didn't speak of it, not openly. Words were fragile. Instead, they built the network in blinks, loops, and lingering patterns. Penny relayed pulses between decks. Nina watched the paths and mapped them in fine graphite. Each path layered into the next. A language in motion, a shadow net crawling under Dominion command. Bots with programmed hesitations blinked at junction points. Maintenance panels flickered out of sync near relay paths. Caleb adjusted drink deliveries to ride past key zones on supply lifts, dropping schematics in marked bins. No message ever said more than it needed. Test, node stable. Blind spot holds. Map growing. It took weeks, but it held. Nina drew a full schematic of Verna's B-tier maintenance grid. Her detail was unnerving. Every unused shaft, every forgotten service tunnel. She never spoke, but the lines she drew spoke volumes. One napkin sketch showed a pulse relay triangle, one that linked 3 dormant Dominion ports. Asha traced the path. It led straight through the eyes-buried logistics cluster. They encoded one message: build the web. The bots carried it to 7 more nodes before sunrise. And in every quiet hour after that, the web grew. The manifest appeared as a simple cargo tag, buried in a bot's visual loop, captured by Penny, decrypted by Asha. Caleb leaned over her shoulder as she parsed the entries. Titanium alloy, controlled fission units, plasma regulators. Too much, too fast. That's war gear, he said, voice low. Asha nodded. Nina handed over a new drawing, a corridor schematic. At first glance, it meant nothing. But Caleb tilted it sideways and recognized the structure, a weapons test ring. Asha stared at the tag again. One word repeated across entries. Tithe. Caleb froze. They're activating Tithe protocol. He had heard whispers. Bartok, a term uttered only when Dominion officers were 3 drinks past cautious. It meant mass relocation. Mass clearance. In Dominion code, it meant human collateral was acceptable. Nina flipped to a new page. Her pencil scratched fast. An overhead view of Verna's lower decks. A red circle around Sector D. 23,000 humans lived there. Asha's hands tightened on the data. She felt heat rise in her chest. Not from panic, but from clarity. The silence wasn't enough anymore. They needed to send a scream, buried in the whisper. Asha stood at the narrow edge of action. Data pulsed in her mind. The Dominion was building something terrible. Here, inside the station, beneath their feet. We need to warn them, she said. Caleb shook his head. If we go loud now, they erase us. Every sector, we vanish, and the Dominion resets the pattern. They'll do that anyway once the tests start. His jaw clenched. They don't suspect us yet. That's our shield. Blow it too soon, we lose everything. Asha turned to Nina. The girl sat quietly, sketching. She held up the drawing when it was done. An hourglass, cracked in the middle. Time bleeding out. Asha stared at it. Nina never guessed. She remembered. They couldn't wait for leaders. They were the map makers now. They loaded a new pulse into 3 bots, supply carts assigned to different sectors. The message was simple. Evac protocols compromised. Danger imminent. Reroute civilians from Sector D. No names. No rebellion banners. Just subtle instructions wrapped in system speak. Enough to plant doubt in the Dominion's blind spots. Caleb said nothing, but he didn't stop her. And that was enough. The bot failed on the 4th loop. A hiccup in its trajectory sent it spinning into a Dominion cargo bay. It collided with a support beam, crumpling its chassis, sparking briefly. The guards moved fast. One kicked it over, rifle raised. But the bot was already erasing itself. Data core burned out in 2.7 seconds. No trace. But not before the message reached Penny. Not before the node registered the final relay. The transmission had landed. Sarah M.O. reviewed the report in Overdeck Tower. Bot malfunction in secured cargo zone. Low priority, but the logs didn't match. Trajectory inconsistencies. Loop timing variance. Patrol overlap out of sync. He frowned. The Dominion model required predictability. And now there was variance. Human-induced variance. His report noted the anomaly. His tone remained calm. But beneath it, a seed of doubt took root. We couldn't yell. We couldn't fight. So we learned to whisper loud enough to break empires. The old ones were the first to vanish from the Dominion's gaze, not by force, but by cunning. Across the decks of Verna's eye, elder maintenance techs slowed their movements, let their eyes cloud, let their hands tremble. They played the part of irrelevance with grace. When questioned, they stammered. When tested, they erred, just enough to be dismissed as fading. But buried in their maintenance logs were patterns. Tool requests came in sequences that mapped out guard rotations. Cleaning fluid orders matched up with energy fluctuation intervals. One man on deck C7 accidentally requested a Phase 3 coolant for a non-existent pipe, an alert to a hidden relay node. Sanitation teams adjusted their routes, inch by inch, over cycles. When Dominion AI scanned for unusual patterns, there were none. When humans moved across compartments, they walked in the shadows of timed ventilation reboots. Breathing was now political. Movement tactical. Nina's drawings mapped where waste overflow alarms never triggered. Those gaps, forgotten, unguarded, became highways of silence. The network was no longer three people. It had a shape, a rhythm, a tempo of missteps and deliberate incompetence. What looked like dysfunction was discipline, and the map now included Dominion barracks, shuttle fueling lanes, and the most sacred space of all, the waste compactor routes. No one watched the garbage. Not yet. It happened at 2:16 local. An alert spike from Archive, Node 41Z. A minor archive, historical files, unencrypted logs. Irrelevant by Dominion standards. But it folded in seconds, collapsing under a recursive data storm. What was first flagged as a malfunction quickly spread. Backup systems kicked in too late. Logs were shredded. Cross-references vanished. A week's worth of Dominion telemetry went black. Sarah M.O. read the report 4 times. The algorithm said anomaly. The pattern said otherwise. He ordered a station-wide lockdown. Curfews were reinstated. No movement between compartments outside assigned cycles. Random sweeps began again, this time with AI-assisted memory prompters, extracting inconsistencies from interviews. The Dominion wasn't subtle anymore. Its suspicion had calcified into action. The humans knew. Eyes dropped faster. Conversations evaporated. Asha listened to the silence stretch too tight. The gap was closing. Soon, even their coded relays would draw heat. The next move would either escalate the web or burn it. In the bars, Caleb noticed a shift too. Officers came drunk, but they left paranoid. Words were fewer. Questions were sharper. At home, Nina stopped drawing for 2 days. When she began again, the sketch was of an eclipse blotting out the Dominion's crest. Asha stared at it, then circled the date. Caleb disappeared without warning. The spill was overturned, glasses shattered, drones slicing through wall panels. 3 guards dragged him out, face bruised, eyes defiant. The bar was declared compromised. Dominion ciphers began decoding his logs. Asha didn't flinch. She moved. Inside a service tunnel beneath Deck E, she accessed a maintenance hub console. It took 12 seconds to bypass the Dominion firewall with Penny's spoof credentials. She didn't need to wipe records, only bend them. She hijacked a broadcast loop from a Dominion weather drone, embedding a false telemetry burst into the environmental feed. When the AI queried Caleb's last known location, the logs would now show him in a different deck, safely attending a maintenance requisition hours away. When the guards checked his timeline, the alibi held. Caleb returned limping, silent, but alive. She didn't speak to him for hours. She just handed him a drink, the same one he always served others. Nina wasn't as lucky. She had been sketching near the census checkpoint when the officer noticed. The sketch, powerful, exact, dangerous, showed internal Dominion layouts. His hand twitched toward the alert beacon. Asha appeared in time. Therapy, she said. Recovery protocol. Child trauma processing. Mandated. Her voice was steady, her tone measured. The officer hesitated. Penny appeared beside them, blinking a code, red sequence reserved for medical crises. Dominion law required leniency. The officer cursed, issued a warning, and moved on. Back in their compartment, Asha buried the sketch. Her hands shook. Nina's didn't. She had kept drawing the whole time. They called him Milo, though no one knew if that was his real name. He handled sector relays in the C blocks. Always quiet, always punctual, never missed a handoff. Until one day he did. The alarm didn't sound. The Dominion didn't announce an arrest. But his code no longer worked at checkpoints. His bunk was reassigned. His employment tag erased. His name faded from the citizen registry like steam off a heat plate. Asha traced every log. Nothing. Not even an error. Only absence. The network grieved quietly. No words. Only gestures. Nina handed Caleb a napkin sketch of a flower with its stem cut. Caleb handed Asha a data chip marked with Milo's old service pattern. She uploaded it into an offline drone, buried in the hydroponics bay. The drone wasn't connected to the grid, but it recorded one log entry. Milo, we remember. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't resistance. Not yet. It was preservation. A refusal to forget. From then on, Any vanishing was met with the same ritual. The erased became entries in silence. Every whisper that passed through the network now bore a new sign-off, WR. We remember. The plan began with a fault. Solar collectors orbiting Titan's shadow quadrant experienced periodic malfunctions, rare but logged. Asha exploited one of those records to forge a new telemetry burst, simulated power flux, radiation spike, cooling emergency. Protocol demanded immediate deactivation and inspection. During a scheduled eclipse drill, when surveillance systems rerouted power to shield optics, Asha's forged spike hit the system. The solar collector shut down. The sky dimmed. Cameras blinded. 3 minutes of artificial night. In that darkness, the network moved. Penny pulse signals across relay towers. Drones emerged from waste ports and vent shafts, transmitting timed bursts to one another using encoded blink patterns. Each burst carried critical data: Dominion fleet deployment, supply convoy paths, archive redundancy locations. All of it passed to a high-gain repeater, an ancient Earth satellite repurposed as a ghost node. At its heart, the data would sleep, waiting for another signal to wake it. The risk was total. If any piece of the chain failed, it would collapse. But the transmission confirmed full map integrity. Asha leaned against the cold wall of the substation, listening to Penny's hum, eyes closed. They had pierced the armor. The data showed what they'd hoped and feared. Near the southern edge of Varina's satellite grid floated Archive, Node 6K. It was small, underdefended, and out of date. But inside, it mirrored higher-tier Dominion AI subsystems. Take it out, and their response latency would fracture. Their reflexes would dull. Fade line. Asha studied the satellite's layout. 4 access tunnels. 1 power spine. 1 long shot. The others hesitated. Some wanted to wait. Some wanted to go loud. But she knew. Waiting meant silence became death. Going loud meant the silence had to sing first. She voted to proceed. So did Caleb. So did 3 others. That was enough. Fade line was no longer a theory. Asha stood alone at the lip of the tunnel, watching Penny scan the next transmission node. Her voice didn't rise, didn't crack. We move at silence. They thought leadership was noise. The plaza shimmered beneath Dominion banners, draped like chains of silk. The annual tribute ceremony was a theater of obedience, mandatory attendance, synchronized salutes, scripted gratitude. Dominion delegates descended in crimson regalia, flanked by armored guards and faceless drones. Screens flickered with curated memories, peaceful annexations, grateful human children, projections of unity engineered in sterile archives. But Asha watched only the lights. Projectors, woven into the support towers, cycled through their patterns. Harmless beams, red, blue, white, painting symbols across the crowd. Harmless, until they weren't. She had spliced a second language into the light show. Beneath each flicker, coded pulses sent false positives through security terminals. Microlags in diagnostics, hallucinated temperature spikes, phantom transmissions. To the Dominion, everything seemed functional. But the lights lied, and the lies bought time. The first glitch blinked at 12:03. A 2-second blind spot. Then another. The net unfurled in light and silence. At the edge of the plaza, Penny blinked once. It had begun. Atmospheric sensors in the plaza began reporting anomalous readings. Trace toxins, unseen surges, nothing dangerous but enough to warrant inspection. Elder engineers, long ignored, sent revised calibrations to Dominion Command. Each adjustment nudged the security AI into manual mode. And at the height of the light show, when all eyes turned skyward, the main projection wall blinked once, then showed a child's drawing. To most, it looked like a harmless tribute, a child's hand rendering of Varina's towers, smiling workers, a Dominion ship. But the lines bent in patterns. The smiles aligned in glyphs. The towers were coordinates. The ship bore a date. Nina's code passed in less than 4 seconds. Sarah Moe stiffened. He'd seen something. Not with his eyes, his instincts. He ordered an audit. But by then, the wall had resumed its feed. The audit returned nothing. The code dissolved. The message passed. He scanned the crowd. Too quiet. Too calm. No one shouted. No one ran. Which, in his experience, meant everything was about to change. Security teams rerouted to ventilation hubs to handle the supposed gas anomaly. Filter cores lit yellow. Purifiers failed test cycles. Engineers offered apologies, performed exaggerated diagnostics. Dominion AI reallocated personnel. The corridors emptied. A courier in sanitation overalls moved through Tunnel 6 carrying a coolant unit with an unregistered weight differential. Inside, layered beneath standard titanium housing, was the Dominion extract node, reprogrammed to copy, not destroy. Caleb waited beside a disabled security panel, one eye scanning the light patterns above. Asha joined him without a word. The node snapped into the archive uplink like it belonged there. 56 seconds until full transfer. She watched the progress bar crawl. The relay lights dimmed as nearby junctions shut down. Cover provided by a simulated coolant surge. Above, the ceremony still played. Speeches echoed. Compliance choreographed. They were halfway through the extraction when Penny beeped once. A warning tone. Ceremo was en route. He appeared like a blade in shadow, flanked by two guards, pulse weapon at his hip. Asha didn't run. She placed her hand calmly on the coolant housing. Step back, he ordered. She did. Slowly. He stepped closer. This ends now. The other guards advanced. Asha didn't resist. His voice lowered. We see everything. We know your niece. We know what she is. Her fingers twitched. Ceremo raised a small device. A kill code beacon keyed to Nina's ID. End this, or she disappears. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw the flaw. The hubris. The expectation that fear would silence her. Her hand moved faster than thought. She activated the glove. A neural pulse fired from her palm, invisible but potent. Ceremo's command implant scrambled. His vision blurred. His internal comms flooded with feedback. The plaza lights died. Darkness fell. Troopers across the city heard orders. All different. Hold position. Suppress civilians. Stand down. Kill hostiles. No source matched. No command verified. The Dominion AI stuttered. Access logs rewrote themselves. Drones misread human tags as threats and stood down. A patrol fired at a flickering hologram. Another surrendered to a cleaning bot. Doors refused to open. Terminals spat static. And in the confusion, the data transfer finished. Penny blinked green. The Dominion extract node pulsed once, transmitting to the Go satellite. Across the belt, rebel fleets caught the signal. Within minutes, Dominion war crimes, buried footage, erasure orders, and false flag archives streamed into the void. On a moon called Risa, a broadcast tower flared to life. On the outpost of Ballin's Hook, Dominion control centers went dark. The silence had spoken. Inside Verona, Ceremo lay unconscious. The guards had fled. Caleb pulled the glove off Asha's hand. Her fingers trembled. She didn't cry. She watched the data go. Not stolen. Not destroyed. Released. There was no explosion. No riots. The tribute ceremony ended. The delegates waited for applause. None came. People did not cheer. They walked away. Slowly, silently. Workers stopped reporting. Doors stayed closed. Food deliveries ceased. When Dominion officers barked orders, no one disobeyed. They simply didn't respond. They could not be forced to march when their feet would not move. They could not be reprogrammed when silence denied the input. Control relies on obedience. But obedience needs belief. And Verona believed nothing anymore. The Dominion tried to reassert command. Reboot orders failed. Maintenance crews went missing. Even the AI began flagging ghost variables, human variants exceeding model tolerances. Across every terminal, every screen, every projection wall, just one message blinked. Verona remembers. The message was untraceable. No origin. No signal. It simply appeared. Everywhere. Even in Ceremo's private command log. Especially there. The Dominion had prepared for armies. They lost to janitors and orphans. They never saw the knife. Only the quiet hand that set it down first. The Dominion left without ceremony. No flags lowered. No parades. Just a quiet extraction. Command units vanishing overnight. Outposts going dark. Patrol routes erased from existence. One morning, the checkpoint scanners simply stopped lighting up. Drones still hovered, but their lenses no longer tracked movement. The speakers that once barked orders played nothing. The screens that once dictated schedules blinked once, then stayed black. The diplomatic corps issued a single, untraceable communique, restructuring of external governance protocols pending. A statement designed to say nothing, meant for no one. Verna didn't celebrate. It just kept working. Bakeries opened on time. Waste units ran. Transit shuttles resumed their loops. But now there were no Dominion inspectors, no black-armored auditors. The tribute banners remained, frayed and untouched, like fossils of the past no longer feared. Children walked past them without looking. No shots fired, no heroes named, just absence, and the quiet hum of a city that had never stopped thinking. She returned to her work like nothing had changed, crawling between conduits, recalibrating systems, resetting drift variables. The plaza where the tribute stage once stood was empty now. The projector towers flickered occasionally, as if remembering what they'd once been forced to show. Asha crouched beneath one, tightening a bolt along the graviton alignment. The diagnostic display scrolled clean. No Dominion protocol left, just human code, bare, unpolished, honest. A child watched her work from behind a planter box. "Will the lights come back?" he asked. She looked at him, then up at the projector. "Only if we want them to," she replied. He nodded like it made perfect sense and walked away. She finished the recalibration. Penny hovered beside her, lights steady and silent. Someone once said humans needed rulers, that silence meant weakness. But Asha had seen what silence really was. It was planning. It was patience. It was the long arc of defiance drawn in invisible ink. Now the ink was dry, and the story was legible to those who knew how to look. The cafe was small, warm, always busy. Block 9 hadn't seen foot traffic like this in years. Echo had no menu posted, just drinks passed over with a smile and a name whispered like an old memory. Blackout Brew, Silent Beam, Drift Protocol. Caleb ran it with the precision of a former signals officer and the calm of someone who had survived the unspeakable. People asked him, joking, half serious, if he had been part of it. He always shook his head. Just a bartender, he'd say, then wink. He never had to say more, because sometimes denial is louder than confession. And in Echo, everything tasted like truth wrapped in a secret. Nina's notebooks were copied, scanned, encrypted, archived. Each sketch, once seen as child's play, became blueprints for resistance. The layouts she drew helped others navigate silence. Her symbols became universal, lines bent into meaning, shadows turned into routes. The first official archive labeled it the Verna method. Her pages taught the art of watching, of hiding truth in view, of turning compliance into strategy. Educators, once assigned to recite Dominion praise, now handed out Nina's symbols to young students. Not to teach rebellion, but to teach awareness, understanding, observation, to see before reacting, to wait before striking. She never needed to speak. The world listened anyway. In Sector the Los, workers timed their breaks to disable fuel diagnostics. In the agate ring, miners synced their comms to reflect silence during inspections. In 36 fringe systems, tribute quotas dropped, without violence, without protest. Just flickers, delays, muted patterns of refusal. They called it the Verna method, not a rebellion, a rhythm, taught quietly, spread rapidly, impossible to trace. The Dominion tried to adapt. Their models failed, because the method wasn't built to destroy. It was built to endure. 1,000 silent actions stitched into one declaration. We see you. We know. We wait. Asha opened a panel under Relay Hub 4A. The diagnostics were clean, the coolant flows balanced. She reached into the secondary buffer, tucked away a small drive. Not part of the system, not in any registry. She wrote, "History counts bodies. But sometimes it should count silences too. She encrypted it under obsolete file tags. Marked it Do Not Delete. The panel clicked closed. Penny hovered, waiting. Asha touched the casing once, then stood. There were no medals, no anthems, only a city still humming, still watching, still free. They erased our voices. We replied with silence that reshaped the stars. In the briefing hall of a Dominion-affiliated war college orbiting the fractured moon of Riston III, a young Atar tactician sat alone, shadows cast across his bifurcated faceplate as the archives unspooled. He had been assigned to study colonial insubordination patterns, specifically human non-compliance tactics in annexed sectors. Most of it was predictable: food riots, sabotage, explosive resistance. Easily modeled, easily crushed. But then he opened a flagged legacy packet. Declassified, untranslated, unstructured. Verna Protocol blinked in green. The file began with a single image, low resolution, grainy, clearly hand-rendered. A maintenance bot, lopsided, outdated, crude, but unmistakably marked with a scratched insignia. A bird with widespread wings, one talon broken. An eagle. Below the image, for words in ancient Earth English. Watch everything. Say nothing. Win. He scrolled deeper. Not tactical summaries. Not command logs. But sketches. Blueprints. Broken circuit layouts repurposed into information chains. Maintenance routes mapped as resistance paths. Silences measured in milliseconds turned into messages. He paused. This was not war as he'd been taught. This was culture as a weapon. Obedience fractured from within. Authority turned inward on itself. It frightened him. More than missiles. More than fleets. Because it was still spreading. He logged a copy under restricted archives. Flagged it inconclusive cultural deviation. He would not speak of it, but he would not forget it either. In the darkness of a cracked repair tunnel on a mining colony far from Riston, an old janitor adjusted a dim sensor array while a child knelt beside him, watching every motion. The elder traced the heat map drift on the screen with a grease-stained finger, then pointed to a faint pulse that broke rhythm once every 28 seconds. The child squinted. "What's that mean?" The old man smiled. "If they're quiet," he said, voice low and certain, "listen closer. Noise makes history. Silence rewrites it."